But I like to do this on Mondays because everybody has too many feelings, overreactions, overly emotional. And so what I try to do is come back with just cold, non-feeling reality. So I call the segment, and we repost this as well, I call this segment Overreactions versus Reality. Overreaction. Arch Manning is a flop. Overreaction. Arch Manning is the best college quarterback in the past 25 years, and he will win the Nobel Prize. Reality. I know there's not much of this. Reality. Neither of those things are true right now. And he is becoming a much better quarterback who's getting help with a much better offensive plan that's making him easier throws and less sitting in the pocket like his uncles. There. The bar is low. It's been mostly a bad year. You don't get that because, again, the whole thing, there's no middle ground when it comes to Arch Manning. You've now learned that. Everything is an overreaction. And the truth is it's been mostly bad, but it's kind of been stuck in the middle. There have been good quarters for him off and on during the year. There's been a good half or two, actually, this year. But he had, against Vanderbilt, he was a very good quarterback. In Texas's win over Vanderbilt, pretty much from start to finish. And that says a lot. Now, no doubt, look, there is no doubt that Texas had a shocking fourth quarter meltdown. And at Vanderbilt hung on to an onside kick, by the way, which has a recovery rate of 8%. When the opponent knows that it's coming, it's about, I think it's between 6 and 8% at the college level. But Vanderbilt hangs on to an onside kick that is in their hands, in the guy's hands, as he's trying to cradle it on the sideline. They go on to kick a field goal, take Texas to overtime, and there's not a person breathing that watched that game that wouldn't think they'd go on and win. When you score 34 points at home, you knew I was going to say this. When you score 34 points at home, you should pretty much win every single time fairly easily. But that has nothing to do with Arch Manning. I mean, I know it sounds weird to say, wait a minute, the quarterback didn't affect that part. That wasn't his fault. It wasn't his fault that his team disappeared for 12 minutes. He led an offense that scored 34. He was 25, 25 of 33 for 328 against a pretty good defense. You know, I don't count games with Sam Houston State and people like that. You learn nothing. But that was a pretty good Vanderbilt defense. Not good. I mean, not great, but good. Here's the thing. This is what you can take out of it other than the shocking meltdown, which is, you know, I've sort of learned in college football now, the game is so unrefined in so many ways. You see this a lot where these just complete opposite quarters even, where teams just come and go and you have no rhyme or reason for it. So I'm sort of resolved to the idea that's just kind of the sport now. But Arch Manning, and I think this is better yet for everyone, without doing the nerdy stuff, the eyeball test didn't lie to you. Here's what you got to see with the eyeball test with Arch Manning. The eyeball test rarely lies to you at quarterback. And so you saw the bad stuff off and on during the year, but now your eyeballs tell you the good stuff. He was in rhythm. His feet were not jittery. They weren't shuffling around all the time. The ball was out of his hands quicker. And he stepped up in the pocket with his eyes downfield. You could, even though you can't get inside of a helmet, you can just tell by the position of his head when he's stepping up in the pocket. His eyes are downfield more often, and he didn't take needless hits. He managed the game well. It's somewhere in the middle of all the reactions, but he managed the game well. Will my industry go overboard with how well he played? Yes, of course. For now, it's a much more comfortable looking offense. That you can take away from Saturday. I have no idea, and neither do you, because you've seen how crazy and up and down these games are with practically everybody. So for now is all we have, and for now it's a more comfortable looking offense. Overreaction. The Houston Texans have playoff life. You're on crack if you believe that. I've sold them long enough. I've got to stop doing the crack myself. The Colts sit at 7 wins, the Jags at 5. It's really, really close. If you want to say it's over for the Texans, I have no problem. There's no argument whatsoever. At 3 and 5, it looks and feels like it's impossible because there's no way. This I think we now know. This is who they are. There is no way that offense catches fire. They don't even have a spark. See the trend in their losses, everyone? Points scored, 9, 19, 10, 19, and 15. And a lot of that's at home. They have a really good defense and a good kicking game, and it's absolutely wasted. Again, a talented quarterback is taking far too many hits again. The money and effort spent on getting C.J. Stroud help has failed again. This is who they are. They score 15 points at home against the Broncos, and C.J. Stroud is knocked out of the game with a concussion. The window, this is the bigger picture for the Texans that should be concerning. That window, that window where they were stockpiling some talent, they seemingly had a sensible coach. Their GM knew most of the right moves. They put together a good defense. They got a out-of-this-world young quarterback. That window is closing fast on this franchise. It is, I'm not going to say yet that window was closed, but man, that thing is closing fast. And in the NFL, the windows don't stay open very long. The ability to spend money, here's the problem, as usual, they're going to run into. The ability to spend money and spread it around is soon going to end because C.J. Stroud's rookie contract is going to be up. And when that happens, you have to be really, really good at math. And most teams in the NFL are pretty good at math, but terrible at personnel, or good at personnel, but terrible at the math. So I don't know yet that they can pull that off. And then we end up in a terrible place again with the Texans since they churn through coaches so often. Should DeMeco Ryans be there for another year? I hate to do that. I do. I mean, if you're a Texans fan, you're sick of it. But I don't know what are you going to do? Like what's going to happen? They've tried. That's the thing I like to say about the Texans management, because the NFL is all about personnel. It's all about front office moves, and they have worked at it. They have made moves. They have made deals. They have acquired players. They've put in a real effort to put together a really good team, and it's not working on offense. It is a swing and a miss. You can be pretty good on offense and be really good on defense and be successful in the NFL. You can't suck on one side of the ball or the other. You just can't suck. They're the different version of the Cowboys. They're the different version of the Bengals, right? You can be great on one side of the ball, but if you're trash on the other, you're not going to last long in the NFL, and that's what they are. I don't know what to do with DeMeco Ryans. I don't know what to say. I guess you wait it out. They're so good on defense. They just need a pretty good offense, and they have not been able to pull it off. They are what the Cowboys are to defense. The Texans are to offense. Now what? Season's over. Overreaction. This is no fun to do this, but this is where we're about to get with analysis of college football. I've said it a million times. I cannot stand having selection committees. I can't stand a sport that used to pretend it was against beauty pageants and polls and people's opinions, only to be in an industry now of polls and people's opinions. Overreaction. Texas won't sniff the college football playoff. Get ready. Some feelings are going to be hurt. Look out. Some of you, if you're fans of, some Big 12 teams, look out. Popularity is going to win out. Here's the reality. I think they're closer. I think Texas is closer to a playoff team than you realize. But there are several things that need to happen. And I'm not going to do the simple thing, and that is, they just go undefeated. I'm not doing that. I'm saying they can lose one more, and look out. Popularity will win out. Okay? So don't laugh. First of all, don't laugh at this part. Texas goes on the road, just playing this out, and against a flawed Georgia team. They're flawed. They can have those shootout games themselves. They go on the road against a flawed Georgia team and they beat them. Texas is flawed as well. I'm not arguing that, but the Georgia defense is far less than what they've been, and they can easily get into shootouts. And when you get into shootouts, you don't know what's going to happen. I give you Texas v. Vanderbilt. That Georgia-Texas game could look a lot like that. I'm going to play this out, so follow me. So let's just say Texas beats Georgia in a shootout. Ball bounces their way. I wouldn't bet on it right now. I wouldn't. But it's not outrageous. So follow me. Then Texas comes home to play the best team in the SEC. I think one of the best two teams in the sport. That's Texas A&M. It's a terrible, football's just about matchups. It's just about one-on-one games. It's a terrible matchup for Texas, other than, here's the one qualification here. And I think Mike Elko at A&M knows this. And the A&M secondary is really sketchy. Really sketchy if you have time to throw. I'm not saying Texas will give their quarterback time to throw, but there is a sketchy part to that A&M team. There's not much. They're really good in most areas. I think they create all sorts of problems for anybody they play. I think they create all sorts of problems for Texas. But follow me out. I'm not saying Texas beats them. I'm just saying Texas pulls off a win against Georgia, but then finds itself in a relatively close game, maybe a shootout against A&M as well. Okay, but A&M beats Texas in a game that looks a lot like their win over Notre Dame or Arkansas. They've been in shootouts, and they can win them, and they would win against Texas. A&M then cruises to the SEC championship game, and Texas sits at 3 losses. You're going to laugh. I don't know that they're that good. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying prepare yourself for the popularity contest to piss a lot of people off, because I think it's coming. If they only lose 3, and they lose them in a certain way, because that's how convoluted this sport is, they're sitting at 3 losses. Could they get in the college football playoff? Yes. Yeah. Here's how and why. And I think this will come up a lot. I know it makes your face hurt, but I only bring it up because I think I think if you're a Texas Tech fan, if you're a fan of any of those teams at the top of the ACC or the Big 12, you really need to be worried that the most popular kid in the sport with a committee that wants them to do well, you better be worried they're going to take your place. So they draw, let's see, okay? Here's the reasons why a 3-loss Texas team could get in. And it doesn't even have to be all that complicated everywhere else. Number one, they're a draw. They had the highest rated regular season game with Ohio State in the past, something like 20 or 30 years. They're in the SEC, and their name is Texas, and they have a quarterback named Manning. All that stuff to a committee that is nothing more than pageant judges, it matters. And if you think it doesn't matter to that goofball committee that selects 8 of these 12, or 7 of these 12, I guess, with a built-in bias already, I think you're crazy. Texas at 3 losses would need a little bit of weird help. But that goofy committee would say, and it's true, and you could almost, I'll bet you in the coming days, you can start hearing some of this stuff from ESPN. I bet you I'm not the only one pointing this out. I bet you start hearing the sales pitch for the SEC, and that could be a 3-loss Texas team on ESPN. Okay, so they are a 3-loss team, but they have wins over ranked Oklahoma, ranked Vanderbilt, and if possible, if they pulled it off, a ranked Georgia team. You're going to hear ESPN sell that like crazy. And they have a loss to Ohio State. Meh. All right, keep following. The ACC gets one tournament team in the league. That's it. They get one. The Big 12 is likely a 1-team tournament league as well. I think it sucks. I think it's wrong, but that's what this is. The Big 12 gets 4. Notre Dame gets in, and a non-power 4 gets their obligatory handout. So guess what? What does that leave? 5 for the SEC. ESPN's own league with 5. So then you check those off, and that's pretty easy. A&M, Alabama, Ole Miss, let's say Vanderbilt or Missouri. And then who most likely gets screwed? That's the way to look at this, so you can see it coming. Now, people are going to argue, but they deserve to be in, Jeff, because they beat so-and-so. This is why I think this whole thing is no better than it used to be with sports writers voting. That's how silly this process is. Likely to get screwed would be possibly Missouri, possibly Vanderbilt, one of the two. Iowa or USC could get screwed. But I think the greatest potential, and I can just start to see this coming already, the greatest potential to get jobbed is the loser of the Big 12 championship game. Okay? And here's how that could play out, because that might be Texas Tech. Prepare yourself, Texas Tech, and you're a big money guy. He might need to call his buddy D. Trump, because I'm afraid it's setting itself up. So let's say Tech beats BYU this weekend, okay? They would then meet again for the Big 12 championship, and Tech loses that game to finish the year with 2 losses. Look, I think Texas Tech is a better team than Texas. I do. But that doesn't matter, right? It doesn't matter. It's about the league they're in, the name they have, the draw they have, and all that stuff. But the silly system is about reputation and draw. I wouldn't be shocked if a 3-loss Texas team and its big name, big following, and famous quarterback gets in the tournament over a 2-loss Tech or any Big 12 team. So in other words, if you lose that Big 12 championship game, you're out. You're out. It doesn't matter how few losses you have. That's what I think is setting itself up. And this is going to, unfortunately, this argument and this discussion is going to do that nauseating thing it does every year where we start talking about your loss is better than my loss. But I do think that's setting itself up. I do think the Big 12 is going to get jobbed. And it will come at the expense of 5 teams from the SEC. Hey, here's a recommendation backed up by my own experience, a great experience. And that is, I've been a client of DJC Law, and I can tell you this. You're going to get 3 things with DJC Law. You'll notice it right away. The difference is you will get peace of mind. They will take care of every single detail perfectly, and you will get the result you deserve. If you're injured by the negligence of someone else, fighting with an insurance company for any reason, trust me when I tell you, you will need DJC Law. Dan Christensen and his team of attorneys have a remarkable track record. I've known Dan a long time. He's a military vet. He's board certified in civil trial law, and I've been a client. So you can trust them. You will get the result you deserve. Check out teamjustice.com, and you'll see thousands of 5-star reviews. The bottom line is, if you're in an accident, you need DJC Law. Contact them right away. 512-888-9999.